Jacqueline Wharton is a breakup and relationship warrior, passionate about helping people navigate through breakups and relationship conflicts with a practical and goal-oriented approach. Having experienced the deep despair of divorce when she was left with 3 very young children, Jacqueline remains highly committed to educating and supporting others to approach their own divorce with dignity, resilience, and intelligence. After completing her arts law degree in 1995 at ANU, Jacqueline practiced law, first at Mallesons, later in-house at Telstra, before founding Separation and Divorce Advisors in 2008. The purpose? To provide the kind of support and guidance she couldn't find when going through her own divorce. So passionate about supporting her clients and resolving their intimate and relationship conflicts with informed and targeted strategies, Jacqueline also founded online masterclass platform, The Relations Suite. Jacqueline's core motivation is to help others make good decisions and provide a framework to help children cope with minimal negative impact. Welcome to Pure Health Hub, Jacqueline.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. It's great to be here today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. It's it's a really interesting and very challenging segment for, divorce and separation, and is an enormous segment of our community. And of course, even more so through apparently during the pandemic. Let's start with the pandemic. It was a great time of challenge. I mean, I sort of feel like we sort of managed to get through it, but so many at home, working from home, teaching their kids, raising their kids, and the challenge to maintain relationships was huge, and of course made more complex because of kids. Do you have any stats on what happened? Was there a spike, and, any stats on why they were looking at splitting? But also I read an article where you were talking about they were looking for alternative accommodation arrangements to get some freedom. Tell us a little bit about
yes, that's absolutely true. So the interesting thing is, it's difficult to actually find any stats on whether or not people were splitting up on a more regular basis than otherwise. And in fact, if you look at the ABS data, it's from 2019, so that doesn't really help us. But when we look at the family court applications, in 2019, the rates of divorce applications actually went down. So that was in 2019. They went up a little bit in 2020. But I'm not sure how much that tells us, because you need to be separated for a year before you can actually file for divorce. So query whether or not we'll probably see more of a spike in years to come in sort of divorce applications. But anecdotally, I think, and the other thing to note, obviously, too, is the divorce applications only refer to people who are married and not de facto. Yeah, so I think we'll probably, anecdotally, I think we all sort of felt that there were more breakups, through COVID or over the last year as a consequence of COVID. I've certainly found that in my practice, and I know family lawyers are very, very busy at the moment, and they're probably the best indicators of whether or not there were more breakups. So for all the reasons that you outlined, pressure in the home, being on top of each other, financial stress, which is obviously the number one cause of divorce. I mean, it's obviously communication, that's the number one cause, but the concrete topic is finances. So when people are under financial stress, they're more likely to break up, which of course is unfortunate, isn't it? Because really, divorce isn't a great financial decision, or an outcome, I should say. It's not a decision, it's an outcome. So it is putting, so a lot of people are under a lot of financial stress, and I think that led to a lot of conflict. Also, maybe just spending extended time with each other and realising actually you're not really as aligned as you thought you were.
Yeah, absolutely. I think spending that amount of time with anybody, unless it's your children, and even then,
the dog is good.
it makes sense. So it's interesting that you spoke about them literally just renting another property and taking turns in. I thought that was a really good strategy for trying to keep it together.
It is actually. So that's called nesting. I don't know if you've heard of nesting before. It's basically where the parent who's looking after the children stays in the family home, and then the other parent goes and stays, usually in an apartment that they've rented, and then they swap. So basically the children stay put, which sort of gives everyone a bit of a chance to, reflect, a bit of space, and for the children to get used to, being looked after by one parent rather than the other. And so when people have that space, sometimes they can recreate, reset their relationship, as it were, and really understand what separation divorce might look like in a sort of a safer way. And if it doesn't work out, then they've sort of already started the process of separation, and certainly bringing the children along for that journey I'm using the word safe a bit, but that's basically what it is.
In a non-hostile kind of.
In a more secure way.
Yeah, more secure way, exactly. Well, it makes sense. It seems like a mature way to sort of deal with it. As you say, it either makes or breaks, but sometimes that's what you need.
Well, and I think certainly given how expensive it is to rent or find other properties at the moment, it does give everybody, it is a good alternative to just, a splitting and then that being the end. But having said that, a lot of people who separate choose to nest as well, whilst they're working through their property settlement or their parenting arrangements.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense.
Before they sell the home and before they sell the family home, if that's what needs to happen.
Right. So, you hear a lot. We all know people who have separated, divorced, and how hostile it can become. Right? Is this a common problem, more common, or is it just, or is it more common to be more pragmatic about it? Which one would be, it's just that we hear the hostile ones more. I don't know.
They're good stories, and there are a lot of good TV shows, obviously. Story of a Happy Marriage was excellent, and I think Sarah Jessica Parker's on Divorce. They're both great. I mean, I could have written both of those. They're great at both shows. So, look, yes and no. Everything. I do a lot of work with couples who wish to be amicable. And I'm seeing more of those people as people become more educated about the impact of conflict on children. I feel that people are looking really for a way to be collaborative together.
That's good.
So, collaborative law, which is where the aim is that you're really completing a puzzle rather than together, rather than in a game of chess. Is certainly on the rise. And there's lots of reasons for that. Obviously, the research of looking after the kids, but also the cost of lawyers.
Exactly. I mean, from a practical sense and a financial sense, like surely that's enough to make you take a long, hard look at the way it's done. You both have to be keen to some degree to engage in a collaborative practice. Like if someone's being dragged along to it, it's not as likely to work successfully. But look, there is hostility. I mean, in divorce, you've been a lot of divorces. There are major betrayals of trust, and people want to feel in their divorce. They want to feel valued, and of course, everybody talks about they want what's fair. What's fair in divorce is that's a bit of a nebulous concept, isn't it? Unfortunately. It is. It's a really tricky one. I'm just fortunate. While I haven't experienced that, I certainly was the child of major complication. So I know what that's like. But fortunately, this end has been good. So it's nice to see that people are trying to do the right thing by their children, because ultimately it's got to be that, right? The number one priority, surely.
Well, you would hope so. I mean, I think sometimes everybody's got a different view. I mean, there's a reason why you're divorcing. You know, sometimes even when I'm working with couples who are amicable, I'm a bit like, well, you're getting along so well, why? You know, or if they're not getting along well, they'll ring me and say, oh, something not be, but yes, but you know, you are divorcing, so it'd be very strange if you were on exactly the same page the whole time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but the kids, I just think there's a lot more research now. We know about the impact of conflict on children, and obviously the research is that, you know, it's not necessarily the divorce itself, but the conflict between the parents that really can damage children long term.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of research on that, but there's also great research out there that says if you do it well, your kids are going to be fine.
Yeah, I think so. I think your kids are quite adaptable if they're handled, and if it's all handled quite well. I think, you know, obviously there's a period, but it's fascinating. Now, obviously, this you know, divorce and separation is a hugely emotional stress, right? Enormous emotional. But you know, there are so many other questions. You know, the financial, the retirement savings, the career, the business. You know, location where you're going to live.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've seen, you know, people say, well, you know, they're just so keen to get the negotiation over with. And often this, in my, you know, anecdotal evidence, is that we drop the ball on the longer term security. What's your advice for that?
Yeah, it's a little bit of short-term pain, long-term gain, or vice versa. Look, you can't get around preparing. So no, let me put something. So sometimes I have clients that come to me and say, look, I just want to get this done. Can you get it done in an hour? Can, you know, if I'm negotiating with a couple, can we get this done in an hour? And I say, well, yes. And they go, oh, great. But I say, but if you agree with everything they say, we could get it done in an hour or 2 hours, of course. But
that's
look, it's not, we're called to be our best selves in a very, very, very distressing time, you know, and we're called to negotiate with someone who I've said may have betrayed our trust. So it is difficult, but like anything in life, I suppose we have to prepare. We put so much energy into buying a new house, or, you know, preparing for the birth of a child.
Right.
Could I say even our weddings? You know, we put so much work into all of those sort of life changes in you know, big life events, but we don't put the same, or we don't want to put the same energy into our divorce. When really your divorce settlement it's probably the biggest financial negotiation you are ever going to do. If you think about what you're negotiating over, you know, sometimes millions of dollars worth of, you know, assets.
Yeah.
And time with your children. So, look, I know it's not easy. I've been through it, and I was a lawyer and a negotiation advisor before. So I had all the skills and all the information, but I still found it very difficult and very traumatizing.
Well, it's emotive, isn't it? Everything about it. It's just, you know, you have to be completely solid. So, you know,
you have to prepare. You have to prepare. And that means really, you know, knowing your numbers. And if you don't know them, you know, working out how to get the information. I do a lot of work with people on putting their budgets together. And I know I've said that, the dreaded B word, but who likes a budget? I hear them, they refer to
nobody.
Things. No one likes a budget. But I do a lot of that work because I think it's difficult for anybody to come to a final decision on, you know, what you'll accept in a negotiation if you don't really know what your everyday position is, or whether you can keep the house. Because, of course, a lot of people want to keep the house, but the question is, if you keep the house, what are you going to live on? And you're not going to know that unless you do your budget. So yeah, I'm probably raving a bit, but if I'm talking to somebody who wants to get it done, I try and explain all of that to them, and then we work on we work on preparing from a matter management perspective, like your budget or, parenting might work. But we also do quite a bit of work on your mindset or your mojo, because really divorce is half mindset, really, and or how you're feeling or how you're reacting.
Yeah.
And half the more concrete matter management.
So you really need to take, from your position, you really need to take a holistic view. They might come to you and say, we're doing this and this is what's going on, but you need to view this completely holistically, where their head's at, where their money's at, where their, what their expectations are, so it's you can't do that in an hour.
Oh,
probably not.
If only. And that's just one person.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just one person out of the two. So whilst you're doing all of that and working out your own, the best negotiators don't just look at their own backyard, they look at what the other person.
Right.
So you sort of need to do all of that work for yourself, and that can be a journey too. Like in the beginning, people may say that they want to keep their home, or they may want full-time care of the children, but after time, after some time's passed, they may realise that they want neither of those things. And because we are, divorce is often a shock, and we sometimes need that shock to wear off a little bit until we start thinking, with our context again.
Right, that's true, isn't it? Because sometimes it is a shock. Like sometimes that trust has been breached or whatever. And it comes to that. It's not like the nice situation, when I say nice, where they get another apartment and they test drive this whole thing. So look, I think
in those situations it still can be a shock, I mean, because we always have a bit of hope, and we've sort of been trained to believe that, these relationships and marriage is forever. So people feel there's a lot of shame associated with divorce, which is terrible.
It is terrible, because I always, and maybe it was a result of my parenting that I had, is I said to my husband, but when he asked me to marry him, I said, well, look, I can't promise anything. It'll last as long as it lasts, right? I didn't sort of, I couldn't say to him till death do us part, because it sort of, the concept was just
so you didn't say that in your divorce vows. You said,
I didn't have any divorce vows.
Oh, no, sorry, marriage vows. No,
we didn't. No, I didn't say it in the marriage vows. But I did say to him at the time, I'm like, yeah, sure, let's get married. But, there's no promises here.
Yeah. My oldest friend actually said in her marriage vows, and I vow to be with you as long as I'm happy. And they've had a very successful relationship. 25 years on, she's still happy. So
well, we've been married 33, and it's 35 actually. And so I don't know, I just always thought there would be that sense of complacency if or something, or I just might get bored. I don't know. I just thought, at 22 years of age, I thought, well, sure, I can, but it'll last as long as it lasts.
Congratulations.
And I think, thanks, but it's, it's good luck rather than good management. Like it's, but I think, sometimes there is so much pressure coming back to that on this marriage thing. And I think, they're quite, to me, it's a weird concept that we would spend our lives together with one person. So maybe, there's more realistic on the other side, but it doesn't make it any less tragic and sad and
of course
devastating.
It's devastating. I was devastated. It was the most traumatizing. I was absolutely, curled up in the corner,
God, I can't.
But there is something I call, look, there has been a lot of research on post-traumatic growth, and I, anecdotally again, see a lot of post-divorce growth in my clients, that they are actually often, after their reset, they're very self-reflective. There's a lot of, renewal in all different aspects of their life. Would they have wished to have gone through it? No.
Of course not. Of course.
but there is a positive, if you put the work in,
Yeah.
in all areas of your life. And I'm not just talking about, your finances or your parenting. I'm talking about self-care,
Yeah, or the need to find another partner quickly or something, like it's about, looking at you. And I mean, ultimately, we are the only people on the planet for us. I mean, we have our partners and our children.
Oh, that's a lovely. Oh, I love that.
So, well, it is. We start with us and we'll end with us, and that's and us individually. So I guess it is a good opportunity. But people say that about a lot of experiences that become a catalyst for major change or to reset and things like that, whether it's cancer or whether it's anything devastating like that. And some people even say they're glad they've been through it.
Yeah.
And wow, that's huge. But it does often lead to another path that can be promising and positive angle to the whole thing, for sure.
Absolutely.
I mean,
and even for those people. Yeah, that's right. Look at me. Even for those people, I mean, there's a lot of, obviously people are in unsafe situations too, and we can't forget that. Yeah. The statistics are devastating.
Absolutely frightening.
Frightening. And there's a lot of children who are exposed to that, that levels of violence, which is just, words can't describe. And so there is obviously the post-divorce growth, but there's also, people get, are out of unsafe situations, and that is why I think, divorce shouldn't be something ever to be ashamed about.
No, goodness, no.
Not on the line on it. No.
Doesn't matter if you're, sitting in a lovely part of, Bagala Heights or whatever. It's not anything to be ashamed of.
No, never.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Someone's betrayed you or whatever it is. They probably did you a favor to get you out of it, I think.
Yeah, sometimes yes. Sometimes yes. It takes obviously a while to work that through and to recognize that. But
Yeah. But the next thing then that we talk about that really drives the emotions, as we were saying, is the kids.
Yeah.
So parenting is one aspect that drives those emotions. So how do we try to keep all of this in perspective when starting the separation process for the benefit of the kids? So we touched on it before, but what do you say to people?
So I have a lot of people that come to me prior to separation and are thinking about leaving, and probably the number one, other than the financials, the fear of the financials, which is natural. There's also a fear about the kids, and a lot of people don't leave marriages in which they've been unhappy for a long time because they're concerned about the impact on the children, and which I understand, obviously. But children are fairly resilient, and they can, and in a way, we are responsible for being our own role models to our children. So I don't think we can ever forget that. I think, if we're in an unhappy relationship and we've done everything we can to stay in that relationship and it hasn't worked, then really it's about role modeling a good relationship to your children on one level. But in terms of parenting and in the Australian family law system, I always remind my clients, you've got no rights in relation to parenting, really, and either does the other parent. The only people that really have rights are the children, and it's right to have a meaningful connection with their parents, with each of their parents, to know them if they're safe. Obviously, if they're safe, I need to put that disclaimer there. But if they are safe, then they are entitled to know both parents or all their parents, and they're half their biological parents. So when you're criticising the other parent, you've got to remember it's half. Your child is half of them. You are actually criticising them, and they feel that. And if you keep going with it, they're eventually going to be, it's going to come back on you. You know?
It will, and it doesn't always come back in the same way to each person. I mean, every child is different, right? So their reaction to that immediately or later on is completely unpredictable.
That's it.
So it's super important to make
super
sure.
important.
Yeah.
So it's super important, and I mean, you know, and I understand too. I mean, when my marriage broke up, my children were they were babies, and so I never was put in the position where my children had to be where I felt they could be my carers, or they could be my confidants,
Yeah.
or they were giving messages between us. By the time they were old enough to do that, we already had established how we were going to co-parent. So that wasn't, an issue. But I do understand for parents who have got older children, that it is very tempting to confide in them and to for them to rely on their children in that way. And it's a challenge, but we have to try to remember that it's their children, and we want them to remain children, and that the issue is really between us and the other parent, and their relationship with the child is separate to that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's just such an important thing to remember. But yeah, it's interesting you say they lean heavily on their children.
you can, and I think it's natural. And I'm not, you know, look, you know, I always say, take my advice and not using it. We're all human, and we are looking for comfort in those you know, really dire years or months or whatever they are. But bringing children in, you've really got to enter your conflict, even if it's, you know, you've got to really ask yourself, what is my intention in doing this? Is this to release? Is it for your child to bond with me against the other parent through toxicity? And that's not a true bond.
Oh, exactly. It isn't it? No. It's a tricky,
hard.
It's a path, really, and it would be hard. It would be extremely hard. But I've sort of always taken the view that it's like, well, you know, you're adult to have the children, then you should be able to deal with it. But you know, I've been fortunate and haven't been there on that side.
Yeah. Oh no, I know it's hard, and I you know, I know it is a real temptation. But you know, we all make mistakes, and we all, you know, so we learn from it, and we think, well, that didn't feel good, or it felt good for a moment, but then it didn't feel good afterwards, or our child reacted in a way that we did not, you know, that they really saw through what we did. So, you know, we won't do that again. We'll just make a mental note.
And, you know, I guess that leads to the next question too, because, you know, everybody has an opinion about everybody else's relationships, right? Your friends, your family, especially in the event of a separation or divorce. So what would be then your top tips for reducing the pain when it comes to separating initially? I think we've touched on this a little bit, but avoid taking on some of the oftentimes misplaced advice, even before they come to you. Like, how do they set themselves up?
It is. Look, if you are taking your friend's advice about their divorce, then you're actually experiencing their divorce, not yours.
Yeah.
One of the difficulties in family law is that, you know, everybody talks about what happened to their neighbour or their sister or their best friend, you know, what percentage of assets they got, or what time with the children they got, and we forget that relationships are nuanced, you know. So, you know, family lawyers study family law for at least a year, and to become accredited specialist, it's a couple of years. Family law is complex. So hearing that my friend, you know, got 60%, so you should.
Yeah, exactly.
It really doesn't understand, really doesn't take into account the complexity of the family law system and how assets and debts and property splits work. And the same for parenting. So I feel like you have to be the owner of your own ship. Like, you have to listen to yourself and start to build trust. Listen to other people. Find professionals.
Yeah, right.
You know, and then decide who you're going to listen to. Sometimes I'll be with a client and they'll have a family lawyer and they'll have a financial planner, and then they'll have their psychologist, and then they've got 4 or 5 friends that are giving them advice that's probably not the opposite, but certainly not aligned.
Yeah.
And I say to them, look, I'm happy to drop out because I don't know if I'm being useful. Like, I'm creating more stress for you because I'm not necessarily agreeing with what your friends say.
Yeah.
And so often I will say to my client, do you want me to step out, or you've really got, we start to work through who is the person that they trust, and why. And then, at the end of the day, it's their life. We're all on the periphery. I can't know everything that's going on. Neither can their friends or the other advisors. So they're the only ones that can really see whether the advice they're being given is right for them. So
tricky time too,
it
right?
is.
Because their brain is going into overtime,
Totally.
they're stressed, they're triggered or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think what you're suggesting then perhaps is they just step away from it.
Yeah.
What do you
Potentially.
propose?
I think really they've got to look at, I think it's always important to have at least one professional helping you through the process, because your friends mean well, but they may have their own motivations.
Absolutely.
And as I said, they don't see all of it. So I think it is really important to get objective advice. And look, going and getting advice doesn't mean that you have to stay with the person that you've gone and got advice from. I have a lot of clients that come and see me for our initial consultation. It might be 2 hours, and I teach them as much as I can, and we talk about strategies, and they're okay to go after that. They can run their own race. But it is important to get some objectivity into your situation. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that is absolutely key when we're sort of all a bit muddled. All right. So look, when all is said and done, everybody, I would think most people want a good divorce. What does that look like then? Just in a nutshell, what does that look like? And how can couples get to that point? I know it's a big question.
Oh my gosh, it's a massive question. It's such a good question.
Sorry, but I think in a nutshell, what does a good divorce look like?
Well, I think it means like there's a whole spectrum of what a good divorce is, isn't there? There's the divorce that's good because you're unscathed. You come out of it unscathed, right? And then there's the good divorce where you've come out of it and you've reached all your financial and parenting goals, for example. There's the good divorce whereby you kept your children are well and thriving. There's the divorce whereby your partner and you, or your ex-partner, and you still can, communicate in relation to parenting. So
wow, so
there's a whole lot of good. It depends where you're at, but the great thing about that you should be able to tick at least one of those. So hopefully in one area you'll have a good divorce. I actually think a good divorce is also a divorce where you've kept your integrity, where you've made good divorce decisions, and that when you can look at yourself every night and go, I've done my best today, and I've done everything I can to walk my talk, be dignified, and
I think that's absolutely right. I think that's where you need to feel, because that is covers everything off, right? Children, the finances, where you've maintained some dignity, you have negotiated well, maybe didn't get every single thing that you wanted, but happy with the outcome based on the give and take. You're right. If you can walk out feeling empowered, I suppose, that's really the good divorce, right? And we're talking from a woman's perspective, I guess, in this, we are in terms of that. So you're probably right. Now, just coming to this masterclass in separation and divorce, what a genius concept.
About genius, but I'll take it.
No, really. I mean, because it's such a personal thing that sometimes you just need to navigate these things on your own first. And to be able to do this online is fabulous. So, a long time coming, I'd suggest. So can you tell us a little bit more about the Relation Suite and how it can help couples navigate that separation divorce process?
Yeah. So the idea for a masterclass came about because I've often been asked by my clients to record short videos, or could they record our meeting, or could they they ring me back? Can you please repeat this, because, you know, I was a bit overwhelmed, or not sure that I got it right. And whilst every circumstance is different, there's definitely some themes, right? So family law is all about patterns. I mean, life is all about patterns. So there's definitely information out there that that applies to most people. And what I found frustrating was that the information wasn't packaged in a way that was accessible, and also so that you could do a step-by-step sort of process. And where you might find some information out there about, you know, the emotional side of divorce, you know, learning also about how to negotiate your divorce, for example. It wasn't so accessible. So really, the masterclass takes you, it's work. I'm big on acknowledging work, prepare. But it's 50 videos with a lot of worksheets, taking you all the way through from are you contemplating divorce all the way through to managing your lawyer. So yeah, and all the way through a focus on parenting, different arrangements, nesting agreements, parenting agreements, how to split your property up, how to do your budget, how to tell your partner that you want to leave, how to tell your children. So how to even make the decision that you want to leave. So it's there's a lot in it. It did take me a long time to write. Everyone was saying write a book, but for me, I think it's the medium of someone talking to you and then doing a worksheet and then coming back and having the worksheet explained to you. Really, I think it's a good way to learn. And I'm all about the education. So the Divorce Masterclass itself is 50 videos, but I had broken it down into some mini courses for, you know, people who wish to be amicable, so couples can actually do it together. I've selected the videos out of the masterclass whereby, you know, if you are amicable, you and your ex-partner can do the videos, learn how everything works. It's all been checked by a leading barrister and family law barrister in Sydney. So it's not legal advice. I need to be really clear. Legal advice is advice that's given, legal information that's applied to people's particular circumstances. This is obviously not that, it's general, but it does explain how everything works and what you need to do. So I did it because I want people to be educated, and I want people to be educated even before they make the decision, obviously would be ideal, but also before they go and see a family lawyer. You know, there are great family lawyers out there, obviously, but it is expensive. And so if you can go in and have at least an idea of how everything's going to work, then that's helpful. There's also mindset videos in there too, because as I keep saying, it's, you know, 50% mindset, 50% manner management. So keeping your mind soothed and understanding how to harness all your negative emotions, it's important.
Yeah, it really is important. And, you know, I think when people undertake this, when they say, you know, okay, I'm seriously thinking about leaving my partner or whatever, I don't think, I would say 99% of people have no concept of what that pathway looks like. And I think to be able to share that, I mean, obviously the legal advice is based on individual situations. I mean, that obviously comes from from a practicing legal professional, but these pathways of navigating through and what to expect and, you know, along the way is vital stuff. I mean, you know, I think people can sometimes go, okay, well, maybe we need to reconsider this. I mean,
well, they do actually. People do that, and I have had couples that have come to me in separation collaboration who have ended up saying to me, actually, we're going to stay together. I mean, that can happen. It's rare, but what I've noticed that with some couples who are doing the amicable course together is that they do the course and then they come to me and I say, yep, that all looks good. And then we send them off to their lawyers to get it drafted up, which is great. But they understand as you
Yeah.
say, how the process works and how to do a balance sheet,
Right.
to divide your assets up.
And understanding why you're doing a balance sheet and understand why you're doing these
Very
worksheets.
good. Yeah.
Because, otherwise you've just got no concept. And I think it's incredible. I think really this is a wonderful, genius concept. And, I wish you the very best of luck with it. And congratulations on it. Well done.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. It's been really great to talk with you today.
And you. We'll chat again soon. I'm sure there's plenty more topics.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah.